We're back. This is Dear Woke Christian, and thank you so much for stopping by today. Many people have said that the Gospel Coalition, the website and the organization, really isn't about the gospel and really isn't about Christianity, but rather about trying to play that squishy middle between left wing and right wing. Just like try to play right in the middle. This article right here, I gotta say, man, the Gospel Coalition is a bunch of mess, hot garbage. And I'm going to show you. Recently, James Forsyth issued this article. After Roe, choose compassion over culture war. Just reading the title alone, you already know where he's going with this. Don't over celebrate. Don't be beating your chest. Don't rub it in the face of the liberals or the party of death. No, be kind, be quiet, be gentle. That's if you had that impression from the headline, then you already know this article. You already know where it's going to go through it. Simply because I want to point out some of the just insanity. So he starts off with a really interesting story about he and his girlfriend. He got his girlfriend pregnant, and they were having a discussion about abortion. Gives a summary of what to expect and what now and whatnot. Now I will say this: he does do a great job of pointing out right here in the second paragraph of the second section. Christians on both sides of the aisle should welcome this ruling. Our views on abortion aren't shaped by our politics, but by the value God places on life. He made humanity in his image. Every human soul possesses unspeakable value, dignity, and worth. I think that's great. That is fantastic. The only problem is the next paragraph. But how do you even do that? You gave such a great reason for why we should not kill our babies. And then you start with the next sentence with, but. Let's look what he says. But as we welcome this ruling, we must be measured in our response. Why? Why should we be measured? Why? James, you say this, but why should we? Why should we not celebrate and just be thankful that one less baby will be murdered? That there'll be just a drop less blood on our hands as a nation? Why should we not celebrate that? Now isn't the time for the church to beat its chest in celebration of a victory in the culture war. Why not? Why not? Because please keep in mind, the culture, the world, they celebrate every victory. Please remember when New York had that rounding applause that they were going to be doing abortions up to the exact moment that a baby would be birthed. And remember that clapping and celebration? They did. Why can't we not? Why can we not celebrate that, as you said here, that every human soul possesses unspeakable value, dignity, and worth? Why not celebrate one less human being being destroyed for our insatiable need to just convenience and bloodlust? Why should we not celebrate that, James? And why should the church, better yet, why should the church not celebrate that? This is a moment for us to step in love. What might this look like? Here are 3 suggestions. Now, he's going to give the 3 suggestions. I'm going to go through the 3 suggestions. So the first one is disarm with compassion. As access to abortion becomes more limited, an untold number of women, sometimes supported by partners, but typically alone, will find themselves in crises, in shock, fear, and despair. They are now without the only option that seemed to offer hope. Let's be clear. These women are not not and have never been the enemy. Our hearts toward them must be loving. I agree, but these women are not victims, though, sir. These women are making the choice to murder their babies. And now that choice is being limited and not even being taken away. It's just being impeded. We've put a speed bump on the way to the abortion clinic. So now they got to drive a little slower going through one area. The celebratory fanfare, because of course that's bad. The celebratory fanfare of a political culture warrior may make judgmental Christians feel better about themselves, but it does little to help these women. Worse, it may serve to make the church the last place a hurting woman would turn for help. Now, we are assuming also that they want truth because they've been getting the truth for the longest. Hey, that's a living soul. That is a human being in your womb. And they still want to murder them. Come on, James. This is the time, I'm sorry, this is the time to be like Jesus, who is gentle and lowly in heart. Let us show a woman in crisis the same compassion Christ has shown to us. Are you saying that telling a woman not to murder her baby and to give her the tons of different options that are available is unloving? I don't understand. I don't understand this, James. So just because I'm happy that this woman now is thinking, this woman is now considering, like, wait, maybe I shouldn't murder my baby. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to murder my baby and so forth, that I shouldn't be happy about that. And I should not work. And nobody's saying we're not working with these women. We just recognize that they are the ones that wanted to murder their babies. And now we're trying to disciple them out of that mindset, out of that wicked heart, into a mindset of recognizing, as you said in the beginning, right here, that every human soul possesses unspeakable value, dignity, and worth. Why is that bad? And just right here, this little inlay here. Now is not the time for the church to beat its chest in celebration of the victory of the culture war. This is the moment for us to step in love. Are you saying that celebration is not in love? I don't get that. Act personally. Millions of Christians in America and across the world work tirelessly. And let me stop real quick. This is a fantastic point that I think more people should point out. And I want to give him credit for that. Millions of Christians in America and across the world work tirelessly and heroically to care for unwanted children, provide for single mothers, and to love those in distress. Full stop. Excellent point. Thank you so much for saying that. Because if it weren't for Christians, we wouldn't have made it this far. Let's just be honest. The notion that evangelicals won't lift a finger to help hurting people has been weaponized to dismiss Christians, but it is a lie. Thank you, James. Excellent, excellent point. Fantastic. Because it is a lie. Great. The world's poor, sick, vulnerable, marginalized, and displaced receive immeasurable help from believers. That is an excellent paragraph. I love it. Everything about it. Thank you. Oh, man. He did it again. Yet now is not the time for the church to pat itself on the back. Instead, it's time for us to redouble our efforts. Reach out to the local pregnancy centers, pray for and encourage those who've been in the front lines. Find out about their needs, increase the amount of money that you give and volunteer and serve. Okay, you know what? I actually agree with that. I agree because we are going to, if Roe, by God's grace, if Roe is completely overturned and completely abolished in this country, we are going to need to, we as Christians and churches and communities are going to have to deal with the onslaught of more children that need to be adopted, so on and so forth. I agree. Increase the amount of money you give and volunteer and serve. Also reach out in foster care and adoption agencies. Consider fostering and adopting yourself and find ways to offer practical support for families in the church, in your church who've done so. Support pro-life ministries like Lives Depend on It. An army of believers has already taken to the field. Now it's time for each of us to act. I agree. The only thing I would push back on here, James Forsyth, is that we're not talking about the fact that we need to disciple these people. Hookup culture and casual sex is not the way to go, because that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about the idea that people have been allowed to use sex as whatever they wanted to without the consequences that come with it, aka pregnancy. So we need to disciple these young adults, these women, these men, these singles, these marrieds, that sex is not just something to use to treat casually and without any kind of recourse, because pregnancy is a recourse that comes from this, and being mindful and truthful and honest about it. That's it. All right. Actually, so I want to give him credit. The second paragraph is probably the best one. Organize corporately. Is your church ready to help the hurting in your community? If not, this is a moment to get your houses of worship in order. Put structures for mercy ministry in place so those who with needs receive prompt attention and care. Cover rent, buy groceries and diapers, and host events to pamper single moms. Build friendships so no one is left isolated or alone. Broadcast your desire to help too. Advertise it. Help your community. See that your church is the place for people. Is the place people should come when they don't know where else to turn. Not the worst thing. Not the worst thing at all. However, again, I want to go back to the first paragraph. We can do all those things and still celebrate. And you're also assuming that many churches are not already doing that. I know countless churches that do support crisis pregnancy centers and such of that nature, and try to disciple and encourage and edify young adults and singles and the such to not engage in the hookup culture, the sex without consequence culture, because that's really part of the problem that we're dealing with, the major part of the problem. The church at its best, a church community that did all these things, saved our pregnancy. They saved my daughter's life. They helped fearful teens become delightful parents. The first time I held my little girl and she stared up at my face, I felt the weight. Though our small gift was only 6 pounds, her life is a lasting joy, is a lasting glory. Years later, our wee girl has grown into a nurse who cares for others. How grateful I am we didn't follow that doctor's advice. Still feel shame over how much appeal the offer of abortion found in my fearful heart. I'm grateful Jesus offered a better path through our families, pastors, and supportive church members. Love came to us through Christ's body, his ever so beautiful church. My prayer is that what will be in response to the Supreme Court's ruling, the church at its very best, Christ's compassion embodied for our hurting world. Thanks, James. All right. The reason I say that this is, again, is squishy and it doesn't point out the fact that the gospel still needs to be given. And if we're not willing to, because you realize that there's no biblical point for any of these things that he said. So these mandates that he gave are not biblical mandates. They're just James Forsyth's mandates. Okay. But the point that is not being pointed out here, okay, the point that's being kind of missed is that the scriptures need to be brought to bear. We need scripture. And I think, and I'm hoping based upon his story, that he had scripture brought to bear over his life and why he and his girlfriend did not murder their baby. And I think that he would be better served by saying that and making that clear rather than this squishy thing that the world can abide by. The world can appreciate everything that he said in here. The world, matter of fact, I believe the world has said pretty much everything that he said here, from don't celebrate. You got to have a plan. Yeah, this is all stuff that the world is doing. This is any crisis pregnancy, secular crisis pregnancy center would be doing these things. There's not one thing on here except the gospel that a crisis pregnancy, a secular organization could not do. Not one. Yeah, I mean, there's non-Christian organizations that rescue children just the same. It's the gospel that makes us different, James. And by us giving and promoting and pushing the gospel and letting people know that, yes, I mean, and I believe he says this in the beginning, or at the end rather, when he says he's thankful for Christ had a better path through his families, pastors, and supportive church members. So I'm assuming that that's the gospel being shared to him and his girlfriend and such of that nature. Then let's just say that out loud. The gospel is what we need, James. That's what we need. The gospel. And I really think that would help. But these kind of articles from the Gospel Coalition don't change people's perception that the Gospel Coalition is squishy, that they don't want to ruffle feathers. They don't want to seem too bombastic on one side of the argument or whatnot. Why not? Why not? They could celebrate when they murder babies. They can have full-on parties about it. Why can we not say congratulations, kudos, that one more baby is not going to be murdered? Why can we not do that, James? I don't think that that's right. And again, the other things that you're saying that we should do, I agree with most of those for the most part. But we're assuming that they're not being done. And even worse than that, we're not bringing the gospel to bear. If we bring the gospel to bear, I think those other things do, in fact, take on much more meaning. So I thank you so much for stopping by today. Thank you for going to DearWokeChristian.com. And everybody, until next time, everybody, grace and peace.